All right. Any questions? Yeah.
So how much of the templates that are going to be delivered up front are we going to have the ability to modify or change, or will there be the ability, or will that new speech kind of look that way for us?
So there are different styles for that are being made available in the template, and basically you can switch between the different styles that you want to see. But it is a predefined list of styles that you get to choose from. So that's developed by OTEC, and then the folks who are authoring the content can pick from those styles when they add the content into the website.
So is this Sitecore that you're using for the content management?
That's correct. So
what I heard from David was it's 2 to 3 years out?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
So, I don't know if you were done, Bonnie.
No problem.
Thank you for that. So, real quickly, some of the questions that we hear a lot, and I will give you a generic response. We are, as I stated on the certificate issue, we are working internally with OTEC's Rates and Recovery Unit to submit a rate package to Department of Finance. We anticipate, I stress that word, having approval from Department of Finance by February or so of 2015. So we don't really know. We can, in our head, estimate, but we can't discuss what this will cost on a subscription basis. We're strategizing an annual subscription by department or site, and that's still in discussion. But I can't even discuss what that magnitude of value or cost is going to be. The other question we hear a lot is when. So we are working diligently, as is SimSoft working diligently. We've heard a lot of different discussions made by executives, et cetera. I will not give a date right now. I can't. As things look right now, we are looking at spring of 2015 for the initial release. And I really can't get any more defined than that, or say I'd rather not. We're working with our upper management executives on strategies that may make that a faster release. But the original release is going to be, I don't want to call it vanilla. We're very excited. It's very full-featured. It's very robust. But when I said 2 to 3 years, this is a living service for us. This is the intention. So it'll come out of for release, people can use, and it'll have all the functionality you're hearing about sometime in 2015. At that point, one of the things Sitecore does very well is the marketing suite. We have licensed that, but we have not deployed that yet. We aren't even testing that yet. So what that allows you to do, for those of you who have gone down this path, is A/B or multivariate testing on a website where randomly visitors see 1 or 2 or 3 different images, and you collect your click-through. So after a period of time, you can actually go back and say, well, when we use this text on a button, it had a 60% click-through adoption rate. When we use this other text on the same button in the same area, it had a much less adoption or click-through rate. And those A/B variances or multivariate testing is a planned future release that we probably won't be coming out for a year or more, but it is on our roadmap strategically. Other things are also on our roadmap strategically. And we do intend this to be a living community base, if you will, of state government. So whoever is using the service, we are currently strategizing a process whereby the users of the service will be able to provide us with requests and feedback that collectively we will take under consideration and make changes, features, functionalities, et cetera, over a period of time into the future. And that process will go on for 2 to 3 years. Yes?
Is this just a resource that will be available, or will it be mandated template upgrade? Will we still have the other option to do our own template?
Absolutely. So this is a service that is offered by OTEC for any California state agency. That's lowercase a agency. Nobody has to use this. We believe there will be huge value in it. We believe that it will be cost competitive. We believe when all considered, it will be a I'll say it's no-brainer that it'd be faster, easier, and cheaper to use our service. But by all means, if you choose to do your own, we will release, as I stated, the redesigned semantic markup template in Web Tools for anybody's use. So if you want to take that and reuse that as a new template for your self-managed static website, you're welcome to do that. If you wish to convert it into Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, .NET Nuke, or anything else that you choose to use as your CMS, you're still welcome to do that.
Are you looking at a monthly service or one-time service charge?
We are still working with our Rates and Recovery Department of Finance. We think it makes sense to do an annual rate that would be renewed on an annual basis. There's a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as soon as you can get information out about timeframes, it's important for my organization, for example, because as executives, we're trying to make a decision on who to do something fairly quickly. And not having something more definitive is difficult for the executives to say if they don't know when it's coming out sometime next year, it doesn't create confidence. So get that information out as fast as possible to the group. That would be really helpful.
I appreciate that. So it was more of a comment than a question, but it was, can we get information on availability, et cetera, as soon as possible? We will. So we don't have it now. As it solidifies, we will keep people apprised. We are anticipating, strategizing a forum for this service, dedicated to this service, probably for February of 2015. It would be not a WUG meeting, but it would be just people interested to hear more about it. At that time, we would hope to have an actual live demo of the finished product as an end-use customer would see it on subscription. So that's our time frame between now and then. Again, the things can happen. Resources can be brought to bear. Maybe we can do it faster, maybe not, and it takes us a little longer. I don't want to lock us into a commitment that we can't provide, but that's the generic time frame we're talking about, and there will be more announcements. Obviously, we're not going to spring a 2-hour customer forum on you a week in advance. We would probably announce that at least 30 days out before it occurs. And it'll be your opportunity to hear more about it. And if we are successful and have the Department of Finance sign off at that time, we would then also be able to talk about a rate. Yes?
I got a couple of detailed questions, maybe a little early, but one is for access control for subject matter experts. Is that something we would control or something we have to do?
So it would be delegated to each department or business unit would have, I can't call them a super admin, an admin at some level. And they would have the ability to create additional subject matter content contributors, editors, and they would have that for their business unit or department.
And then for, my understanding is that Sitecore allows third-party programs. Is that something you would be able to install, or would that be available at all if that's the case?
As we're currently strategizing, it would not be something you would be able to install. That is part of the discussion we talked about, CA Web Publishing subscribers in some sort of a forum of, if everybody wants it, everybody is, or not everybody, a lot of people are agreeable, you know, yeah, this looks great. As a community, we can come together and say, okay, OTEC will have the responsibility of incorporating that for use. So we're really not going to turn the back-end Sitecore over to anybody where you can do your own thing, but we are willing and very interested in hearing what, as a community, the users of the service are interested in seeing in future releases.
And then last one, I don't know if you guys have talked through this at all. Can you talk about migration, data migration into the system?
So we've conceptually discussed that. We don't have a full strategy. We don't have the full process articulated. We believe by February, or our user forum would be able to speak to it much more specifically. There are various tools out there that can handle some of this. The biggest concept that we understand that might be, I won't call it a challenge, but more workload, is moving from the concept of a page, a web page, to the concept of content. And Sitecore is driven off of content. So when we get into the marketing portion a year or more away, you would have the ability to actually have the system provide content to a person based off a persona. So different people would actually have the potential of seeing different content based on their past history or their geolocation of their IP addresses, those type of activities. So to get people out of the mentality of we build a web page and this is what the web page looks like and does, may be the biggest challenge. That and all of the semantic markup. So if we start people down the path of semantically marking up with agency tags, department-specific tags, metadata, one of the really powerful things in Sitecore is the ability to do faceted search. That faceted search is driven off that type of back-end structure. So those are the type of concepts that would probably have the biggest role in the migration.
Did I hear you?
I'm sorry, there's a question in the back. I'll come back to you. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I heard the semantic mark of the template, and then I missed the rest.
How does that affect?
So the question is, how does the release of the new template affect or impact departments and agencies currently incorporating the existing template? Thank you for the question. The bottom line is, we release this for use. There is a general mandate to use the most current template. There's, as far as I know, no enforcement that people are going to come in and talk to your CIO or anybody else in your organization. If you are on a path to incorporate what's currently out there as the available template on web tools, I encourage you to continue that effort. If at a later date you wish to incorporate the semantically marked up, that's a choice you would have to make internally in your organization and strategize how you would do that for your uses. That's one of the reasons we decided to incorporate the new template directly in CA Web Publishing, shameless plug time. That takes that burden off of you. Every time a new template is released by the state of California, that new template will automatically be incorporated into CA Web Publishing. I have a question up here, and I'll come back to you. Yes.
So you mentioned that this is platform neutral, so it doesn't matter if your shop is running a PHP shop or .NET or whatever, it doesn't matter?
So this is a service. We have a few questions. Let me put this on. Get that out of my hand. So as a service, it is agnostic to the point that you shouldn't have to worry about this. The under the hood manufacturing changes, et cetera, is going to be handled by OTEC. That's the bottom line here. We're not expecting any user of the service to actually go into Sitecore and make configuration changes. So again, it's out of that concept of, well, we're a PHP shop, we're Linux, we're Apache, we're Windows, we're .NET. This is a .NET-based product. Our programmers who are doing a lot of the work, actually the heavy lifting right now is being done by SimSoft. It's all being done in .NET Framework. But that shouldn't matter specifically to an end user, because we are providing a service, not a tool, not a platform you can develop off of. That's key, and that's fine with us, but that's not what a department chooses to do. They want more hands-on, under the hood, get dirty and greasy and tweak things themselves, then this isn't the service for you. Yes, there's a question to that. So the question is, are we going to provide best practices, training, seminars, etc.? I'm paraphrasing. So the short answer is, it is on our strategic roadmap. We do not have that calendared at this time. It is something we've taken into consideration that would be necessary. So as we envision this, as customers approach us and say, we are interested, there will be a one-on-one session with the technical people at that department about what this actually means to them, lay out a strategy, and do a walkthrough process. Here's what you're going to have to do. Here's what we're going to have to do. And we see the onboarding of new customers as a very integrated process, customer by customer. In addition to that, if we're ready for it when the forum comes around, whenever that does occur, we would probably have some general best practices that we could address at that time. Does that answer the question?
Just a point of clarification, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Earlier, there was a question about whether or not this was a cloud solution, whether it was installed locally. That it's not a cloud solution. But it sounds to me that you're subscribing to a structure that we're hosting. We don't use our web servers for the service.
Absolutely correct. So let me clarify, and maybe it's me being a little pinned out. This is on a server farm at Gold Camp, managed by OTEC and OTEC personnel, where OTEC is licensed the back-end drive. Technically, it's in a virtual environment. It's not a cloud per se. And I'm very specific of what the cloud is. This isn't cloud, but you do not have to touch the hardware, the software behind the code. It is service. You open a browser, pass through your credentials based on your role-based access. You're given permission to edit, change, and add content various places of the page. If you have been granted by your department publish rights, you can click, you're done. If you have submit rights or some other terminology that we're still working on, you would submit that in a queue, and it would go to the person who has published rights for review, who could ever say, nope, reject that, or I'm approving that, click publish, it's now live. So it'll all be browser-based as far as the content contributors. You open a browser, passing credentials, doing your work, hitting queue or publish, and logging out. Yes.
How complex an approval workflow can you build into it? Is it just one level of approval, or can you have more than one?
And help me, I'm looking back at the technical staff in the back of the room. I believe right now we're looking at content contributor, editor, and publisher.
Agreed.
So thank you, Alicia. That's Alicia Johnson, who's part of the project team. So for those of you who couldn't hear her, or the people on the webinar, what she stated was the initial release is going to be a fairly scaled down business process. But we could make it as complex as you need. If you have some very, very specific, well, it has to go here, and then it has to go there, then it has to go to that other person, we can work on that. The tool allows it. But again, as a service, we have to be sensitive not only to your needs, but what we're able to easily maintain. We really want to take this as, again, it's a community effort. While there can be customizations specific to an entity or department, by and large, we want this to be a platform that's uniform to all users, make it easier for us to maintain, and keeps your costs down. Any other questions? Oh, yes. The concept of the workflow is something built by OTEC. We'll offer, here's potential choices. And you would be able to select for your, I want that to happen, out of the choices or like a menu stroke. And I'm not talking about a menu on the drop down. I'm talking the concept of pick and choose. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, 4. If there's something you need that isn't there, through the process I've talked about that isn't yet vetted, we'll have a way of intaking that, having a discussion saying, okay, in the future, we're going to add this new business process. And instead of having a choice of 3 or 4, there may be 5 or 6. So currently, disaster recovery per OTEC is not part of the offering. It won't be on the initial release. It is on our long-term strategic vision. So this is all built with VMware and the OTEC, I think it's called VIP now, Virtual Infrastructure Platform, the VMware service offering. At some point in time, we are in discussions about the potential of having that replicated at Vacaville at the ER site and using built-in VMware tools to simply move those nodes as necessary. So in a complete disaster, we smoked and cratered old camp, it would replicate over in Vacaville. A very high-level view of it, that's long-term strategy. I couldn't even begin to give you an estimate of when, but that is on the roadmap using the VMware tool.
So for a period.
I don't even know how we'll be able to do that. So we will do backups. We'll be able to do restores. The VMware environment gives you some level of redundancy already. You're not, locked into a single machine with a physical machine. But actually doing disaster recovery, I really don't even know how you'd be able to do that. And you basically have to replicate the site core back in yourself somewhere and then migrate to it.
If I could address that, the state controller's office has been using CMS applications for the last 6 years. And we basically, for our disaster recovery, we look at how can we get to the internet, how can we get to the website, how can we make updates, changes, press releases, and stuff, separate from the application itself that publishes to the website. I think there's 2 areas to kind of look at it, disaster recovery, what's done.
So I appreciate that comment. So one of the things we haven't touched on, I just want to be real clear but brief. There's actually 2 tiers in this project, or this service. There's infrastructure that does the authoring, the component, the infrastructure that a customer user would interact with to make changes, updates, et cetera. There's a separate presentation that provides your website to the public. If the authoring tier was interrupted for some reason, you would still have redundant environment. We have 2 load balanced content delivery, I think is what Sitecore calls them, licensed servers that would provide your site. So there, in that scenario, we don't envision it happening, but if it did, you may not be able to log in and make content changes during the time that there was an interruption to the authoring component, but your existing site is still live and published to the public as it was before you wanted to make the changes. So there is that level. It's not all one big platform. It went down here in the dark. There is that separation. And, yes.
I just want to clarify, drive one point home. We have web applications that we have written on site, and I don't see this necessarily as a good solution for those because we would need to insert our own .NET code into the site. Am I correct in assuming that? Okay.
What you could do is essentially have this as your public-facing kind of content site, and you can host your applications using the template, of course, the downloadable semantic template, and build your applications using that template so that you maintain the look and feel. And then essentially this can be used for your content, and you can link out to your applications from your content to your internal servers to serve up those applications.
Also, I do want to, I did announce it in my 5 minutes because it's way over fashion. Well, I'll be subjective. It's over the horizon a little bit for us, but we are building out an application hosting environment that we can talk about how that would interact with CA Web Publishing specifically, or your own hosted website, wherever that is. Richard, he is the supervisor of the unit that's working on that. Do you want to say a few things about that, or?
My that. The originally was only dedicated. And then it's like, yeah.
So we really think, we'd really be happy to see everybody use CA Web Publishing, but if it just doesn't work for you, we understand. And you're always welcome to do your own thing. There's no arm twisting or mandate here as far as the service goes. But as we announce these future initiatives like application hosting, we'd be happy to have a discussion on, here's what my application actually does. How can I embed that or link to that, or however that works in Sitecore? That's the kind of stuff over the period of time in a community fashion we'd be much willing to discuss it. Again, I'm okay saying we've heard about it, we've talked about it. The answer is we just don't think that's supportable. You're free to do whatever, or thank you for bringing that attention. Here's our strategy. If that works for you, it works for us. We're going to go do this. Anything else? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, David. That was a good Q&A session. At this time, if there are no further questions, if you think of any questions after today's meeting, feel free to email us at the email shown on the screen here. And aside from that, we are done for the day. Thank you for coming.